Today, we've got a major story involving Nnamdi Kanu, leader of indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB. The headline says, Nnamdi Kanu loses temper, invites Ethiopia, Kenya, and US witnesses Omotosho, gives court trial order. Let's unpack what's going on right now in clear, everyday Nigerian English. So, Kanu is in a trial at the Federal High Court in Abuja, presided over by James Omotosho. The government is prosecuting him on terrorism-related charges linked to his push for secession and the activities of IPOB. He denies the allegations. At the latest hearing, Kanu told the court that he intends to call up to 23 witnesses for his defense. And get this, some of the witnesses will come from Ethiopia, Kenya, and the United States. He also announced that he is now representing himself. He disengaged his previous legal team led by former Attorney General Kanu Agabi, SIN. He said the legal file was not handed over to him yet by his former lawyers, so he asked for an adjournment till Monday to get ready. Judge Omotosho expressed surprise and concern. He said the calendar had been set up with an accelerated hearing regime, and yet delays are happening. He allowed some extra access for Kanu's visitors and lawyers. He ordered that the security agency, Department of State Services, must grant access on Saturday and Monday so Kanu can meet his counsel and prepare. Here are the key components you need to know. The trial. Kanu is charged with serious offenses, including incitement to violence via the push for Biafra secession. He pleads not guilty. Witnesses. The defense's plan is extensive. Witnesses from overseas, Ethiopia, Kenya, USA, suggest a wide scope. He categorized them into ordinary but material and vital and compellable under Section 232 of the Evidence Act. Legal representation. He has opted to go it alone, representing himself, but demands access to the files and time to prepare. Court order. The judge warns that delays cannot keep dragging the process, despite granting some flexibility for fairness. Now, let's talk about what this means. And let's be real about the twist in this saga. First, why bring witnesses from Ethiopia, Kenya, USA? It raises questions. What will their testimony cover? Are these witnesses remotely linked to IPOB or Kanu's defense strategy? It may indicate the defense is trying to frame a broader international dimension, maybe linking Kanu's case to diaspora, foreign expertise, or international law arguments. That can be heavy. For you at home, this is not just a local courtroom drama. This could have international implications. Second, Kanu representing himself is bold but risky. Every legal counsel will tell you, defending yourself in a high-stakes trial with terrorism charges is extremely challenging. He's asking for 90 days in his motion to conclude his defense because of the number of witnesses. The judge hasn't yet granted 90 days, and there's pressure to move quickly. Third, for Nigeria's justice system, this is high visibility. There's the accelerated hearing regime. The court is giving extra sessions. The judge is saying, will not delay other cases because one is dragging. That means this case will be watched closely by Nigerians, by the world. How fairly the trial proceeds will matter for rule of law, for perception of Nigeria's courts. Fourth, politically, this feeds into Nigeria's long-standing issues around secession, regional tensions, federal versus state powers, and how the state deals with dissent. Kanu's IPOB is proscribed. The state says security. Supporters say self-determination. The witnesses, Location of arrest: he was rearrested in Kenya in 2021. And now, this expansive defense plan all reinforce how charged the atmosphere is. Let me walk you through a possible timeline of what really happened behind the scenes. Kanu has been kept in detention since 2021. His lawyers filed various motions. He signs a motion, 21 Oct himself, listing 23 witnesses, including high-profile public figures. He asks the court for 90 days. On the court date, he announces his previous lawyers left, and the file was not handed over. He demands more access and time. The judge grants limited extra access, but reminds him of the 6-day defense window. The case is adjourned to Monday, 27 Oct, for his defense to open. What to watch for going forward? Will the overseas witnesses actually appear? How will they be summoned? Will there be issues with jurisdiction, travel, international legal cooperation? Will Kanu stick with self-representation or bring in counsel? Are his former lawyers still involved behind the scenes? Will the court allow the full 90-day request or stick with the schedule? What will the prosecution do? They argued that the defendant already has enough time and must comply with the time frame. How will Nigerians, the regional communities, especially the Southeast and the diaspora, react? Will this raise tensions or calm things? Now, a related angle worth discussing: the role of access to detainees and preparation of defense. Kanu says his access to counsel and to visitors is limited. 2 hours every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's what he told the court. In high-stakes trials, especially involving national security, there's always tension between state control and fair trial rights. For us watching, is this access enough? Will it impact the quality of defense? We'll see. Also, the mention of loses temper in the headline may refer to the frustration he expressed over not getting his file, not being able to get ready, and the court schedule closing in. Emotions run high in such cases, but as watchers, we should focus on facts and process. So, after the last hearing, where Kanu said he's calling witnesses from Ethiopia, Kenya, and the US, there's been a lot of discussion both in Nigeria and abroad. Many Nigerians are wondering, why these countries in particular? Let's break that down in simple terms. You see, Kenya is very key in this case because that's where Nnamdi Kanu was reportedly arrested and extradited from in 2021. There's always been a debate about how that arrest happened, whether it followed due process or not. Some of his supporters and lawyers have long argued that he was unlawfully taken from Kenya to Nigeria without formal extradition procedures. So, bringing in witnesses from Kenya may be his way of proving that point, to show the court what actually happened during that arrest. Now, about Ethiopia, that one raised a few eyebrows too. Ethiopia hosts the African Union headquarters, and it's possible that Kanu's defense wants to pull in witnesses or evidence that tie into African human rights or diplomatic processes. Maybe they want to show that his rights were violated or that certain international laws were not followed. Then, for the United States, that's where a lot of IPOB supporters are based, and also where Kanu himself has had some international backing from rights groups. So, witnesses from there could include observers, experts, or people who can testify about IPOB structure or activities in the diaspora, to possibly paint a clearer picture of what IPOB actually stands for, and to challenge the terrorism label given to it by the Nigerian government. If you're following this story, you'll notice one thing. This case isn't just about one man. It has turned into a test case for Nigeria's justice system, international cooperation, and human rights. Whether you agree with Kanu's ideology or not, the way this case is handled will say a lot about Nigeria's credibility before the world. Now let's talk about that courtroom scene. According to reports from the last sitting, Kanu appeared visibly frustrated. He complained about not having proper access to his legal documents. Imagine facing a terrorism trial and you can't even review your own file. That's bound to make anyone angry. The judge, Justice Omotosho, did acknowledge the concern, but reminded everyone that this case must move fast. The judge even said, and I quote, "This court cannot continue to wait endlessly." So there's tension on both sides. Kanu wants more time to prepare. The court wants the case to move forward. Now, in situations like this, there's always that balancing act. The law must take its course, but the accused must also have fair access to prepare. The court's order for the DSS to allow him to meet with his lawyers on Saturday and Monday was a way to make sure he gets enough time to organize himself before the next trial date. But let's also be honest. Kanu, choosing to represent himself, adds more pressure. It's brave, yes, but it's not easy. This is a terrorism case with heavy legal technicalities. Even experienced lawyers struggle with these kinds of charges. The average person might ask, why didn't he just keep his legal team? Some say he lost confidence in them. Others think he wanted direct control over his defense strategy. And this is where things get interesting. Because if he's planning to bring 23 witnesses, that means he has a serious plan. These aren't just random people. These will likely be individuals who can help him explain or counter the government's narrative. But then, how will the logistics work? Bringing witnesses from 3 different countries isn't simple. There's visa processing, travel arrangements, court scheduling. All those could take weeks or even months. That's why he's asking for up to 90 days. Now, whether the judge will allow that full time or not is still up in the air. The prosecution team has said they're ready to move immediately and that the defense has already had enough time since the last adjournment. So, we may see another round of back and forth motions before the actual witness testimonies begin. For viewers, this is where we need to pay attention, because how the court handles those witnesses will tell us a lot about transparency in this trial. Will the foreign witnesses testify in person or virtually? Will they be granted full protection and freedom to speak? All those details matter. Let's also talk about the public reaction. Nigerians are divided. Some say this trial should be fast-tracked so the country can move on. Others say the government should consider dialogue instead of prolonged detention. And then there are people who believe Kanu deserves every chance to defend himself properly, no matter how long it takes. Now, beyond the legal drama, this story also ties into a bigger national question: the issue of unity and inclusion in Nigeria. IPOB's movement didn't just appear out of nowhere. It came from years of frustration by some in the southeast who feel politically and economically marginalized. Whether or not you agree with the method IPOB used, it's clear that the underlying issue of equal representation is still there. And the government will eventually have to address that through dialogue, development, and trust building. Before we wrap up this segment, let me quickly remind you, if you are watching right now, please like this video so more people can see it, and subscribe if you haven't already. We drop these updates regularly, and we want you to stay informed as things unfold. Now, as the next court date approaches, expected early next week, all eyes will be on whether Kanu finally gets his defense started, whether his international witnesses make an appearance, and how the court balances speed with fairness. This case is far from over. In fact, the real drama might just be starting. The question now is, will Nnamdi Kanu's international witnesses turn the tide in his favor? Or will it become another delay tactic?